country, and a very frightening reality. And there isn't a clear sense of what people here in the city of Kharkiv, 1.4 million people, are supposed to do. Are they supposed to evacuate? Because this city is actually uniquely vulnerable. You have a huge buildup of Russian forces just on the other side of the border. You've heard our Fred Pleiken, who's been reporting from there, hearing a sort of steady stream of outgoing artillery, and we know that troops have continued to mass along with heavy weaponry and armor. So the question is, do we start to see some kind of a ground invasion? Is this a sort of prelude to that as they go about softening military targets? An Interior Ministry advisor told CNN that they believe the strikes here that we've been hearing around Kharkiv are military targets. We don't know exactly what they are yet. I assume we'll get a better sense now that the day is beginning as to what the targets were. But there are real questions now as to what to do with the people who live here, because this could quite quickly become isolated or cut off if indeed we do start to see a more forceful incursion coming in involving Russian ground forces as well as cruise missiles and indirect fire.
All right, Clarissa, I want you to stand by. Well, Caitlin, the president releasing a statement. I understand you have some new reporting, but releasing a statement just a short time ago, and I quote here, President Putin has chosen a premeditated war that will bring a catastrophic loss of life and human suffering. Russia alone is responsible for the death and destruction this attack will bring, and the United States and its allies and partners will respond in a united and decisive way. The world will hold Russia accountable. Caitlin, at the White House, what more do you have for us?
Yeah, and when it says holding Russia accountable, we will hear from President Biden on this tomorrow. He said he'll make those announcements for what exactly they are going to do. My colleague Phil Mattingly is reporting that tomorrow afternoon we should expect President Biden to come out and announce those full sanctions that he has been talking about for weeks now, saying that they would have those ready to go. If you saw what we are seeing tonight and what our colleagues are reporting tonight that's happening inside Ukraine. And so we don't have all of the specifics of exactly what those sanctions are going to look like. We know that the president, his team have called them severe and said that they will be swiftly imposed on Russia. So we should expect President Biden to detail that tomorrow. Don, expect it to be about banks, export controls when it comes to technology. President Biden himself has said maybe there will be sanctions on President Putin personally after, of course, they have threatened to go after his inner circle, concerned about where he stores his wealth. And so you will see those sanctions laid out in detail by the White House tomorrow. Of course, we know those are the sanctions that the White House has been threatening for weeks, saying that they believed they would hopefully deter President Putin. Clearly, he does view this decision as an emotional one, as a historical one. The White House has talked about how bizarre and chilling they found his speech that he gave recently that is driving these actions that he has tonight. And so people will be standing by to watch that. But so we will hear from President Biden on this tomorrow. And Don, we should note that he said tonight he and the First Lady are praying for the people of Ukraine who are waking up to this horrible news that's being reported this morning.
I want you to stand by at the White House. So we have heard the White House is saying the president said that Russia alone is responsible for this bloodshed. You heard Caitlin say they were hoping that these sanctions would be a deterrent. Obviously, they are not. At this point, we are beyond sanctions being a deterrent. Can you hear me, Joe?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Go on, please.
Obviously, the president, the Russian president, is not talking about sanctions. This is, as we get more and more of the translation, this is a very angry speech, and it's directed not only at Ukraine, it's also directed at NATO. He says that NATO supports those neo-Nazis. And he goes back into history about Crimea, etc. But I think two really important things. He is actually directly talking to the Ukrainian army and saying that you don't follow the criminal orders coming from the Ukrainian government. I urge you to lay down your weapons immediately and go home. And he says, let me make it clear that all servicemen, if they do this, they will be left in peace. But then this really chilling warning at the end, where he says anyone from the outside who's tempted to interfere in ongoing events, whoever tries to interfere with us, and even more so to create threats for our country, that would be Russia, and for our people should know that Russia's response will be immediate and will lead you to such consequences that you have never experienced in your history. So that is really a blood-chilling threat, and it sounds like it's a threat to the outside world, to NATO or to the United States, who might want to intervene to stop this. So this is really extraordinary. And Don, I go back to, and this is just, impression, he is wearing, in this speech, he is wearing the very same tie, the very same suit, and sitting in the very same position that he was in on Monday when he gave that very long speech. And just raising the question, could he have actually recorded this on Monday? It is now Wednesday night, going into Thursday. It could be that this was all planned even, obviously it's been planned, but maybe even this was planned for a couple of days ago.
All right, Jill, I want you to stand by, and perhaps you can help me out with this conversation. I'm going to bring our Jim Shudo. Jim, Jill is reporting on what the Russian president said earlier, and I'm going to talk about the Ukrainian ambassador, because there's this meeting late at the United Nations Security Council, and I want you to respond to what the Ukrainian ambassador is saying. He's saying it's too late to speak about de-escalation, that the UNSC needs to help stop this war. He said it was a responsibility of this body to stop the war. The Russian ambassador responding to him saying, this isn't war, this is a special military operation in Donbass.
Well, first of all, the evidence before our eyes and through our ears this evening is that it is not just an operation in Donbass because of those explosions witnessed in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, or just outside, as we saw Matthew Chance reporting, and in Odessa, and as I reported just a few minutes ago, that it is the early U.S. assessment that those explosions were a part of a broader invasion plan. By the way, Kharkiv as well, in the northeast of the country, is outside of those supposedly independent republics as declared and by Russian-backed separatists and recognized just in the last couple of days by the Russian president. So again, let's remember with the Russian president, perhaps listen to what he says, but believe what you see with your own eyes or hear with your own ears. I will say again, as the U.S. is watching this and watching this very closely, at this point I'm told there has not yet been observation of Russian ground forces going in. Again, this is early, but that is still the expectation, the U.S. intelligence assessment that is part of a broader invasion plan. Of course, as with all these steps, it remains to be seen what happens, what Putin orders. But again, from the beginning, going back months, frankly, the U.S. assessment of Russian plans had been to begin with an air assault, missiles, artillery, aerial bombardment, soften the battlefield, you might want to say, and then follow with a ground force. The other point I would make is this, Don, and you've covered on your broadcast, and CNN has been covering this for some weeks now, that it is the belief of the U.S. and NATO intelligence assessments that part of the plan as well is to install friendly, in effect, government officials, right, to remove those who were elected by the Ukrainian people serving those positions and replace them with people friendly to Putin and his government. A comprehensive military and political plan. Again, that's the assessment. Our job here is to watch what we see with our own eyes and see what comes to be. But the early signs tonight foreboding.
And no one is more in the moment than our Matthew Chance, who is in Kyiv. And just a short time ago, Matthew was giving his live report when he started to hear explosions near Kyiv. He is on the same balcony that he was on earlier, and I understand you have some new reporting. What are you seeing and what are you hearing, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, Don, it's been pretty noisy here for the past, half an hour or so. We've been hearing more, volleys of explosions. This time coming from the north of the city, which is in this direction. Now it's getting a bit lighter, so we can get a bit more visibility on what's going on. About 20 miles from here, towards the north, there is a military air base called the Vasilkiv Air Base. And it's where fighter jets and interceptor jets of the Ukrainian military are based. And what the Interior Ministry is telling us now is that many of the cruise missiles that have been fired at Kiev by Russia over the course of the past hour or so have been targeting those military jets, that military air base about 20 miles away to the north. The Borispil airport as well, which is the main international airport, which also has a military component, and surface-to-air missiles, for instance, there. That's also been targeted, but it all points to this, and we don't know what he's up to exactly, Vladimir Putin, what the Russians are up to, but it all points to this idea that they are neutralizing Ukraine's air defenses, trying to. And Ukraine's air defenses aren't very substantial, it has to be said. They've got very old aircraft, they don't have very sophisticated anti-aircraft weaponry. But what they have got, it seems, is now being taken out by these cruise missiles attacks. And we've counted, I think, 15, 16 volleys so far, each with multiple explosions in different parts of the city, to the east towards the international airport, to the south, and now, of course, I've just been explaining to the north as well.